You hear it. You hear it. A massive, massive win for the Sixers as they escape South Beach, taking down the Miami Heat by 4 as they close out the game on a big run in the fourth quarter. 15-3, win it 109-105. Close the gap against Miami and Indiana, who was idle tonight, but most importantly, even the season series in case there is a tiebreaker with the Heat. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers post-game show. We welcome all of you in with Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm Devon Givens, Brianna producing, all of you in there. Kyle's already on the bell. You might as well start us off, man, because this was start us off there too. He's choosing chill tonight. Look at that. As the Sixers get big-time performances from your dynamic
ice-cold
duo.
Rocky Mountain refreshment.
There you go. And you know why? Because he needs to chill now, because if you were sitting here watching the game, I'm sure like many of you were, after they played the way that they did in the first half, or let's just say the first 11 minutes of each quarter until the fourth quarter where they finally decided to turn it up in the final minutes of the fourth quarter. I'm glad he's choosing chill here. And I'm thanking the Sixers for allowing him to choose chill in this way. But we'll start there with you, man. Of course, the up and down nature of this game.
Absolute roller coaster.
Which it didn't seem like it was going to be that way if we all saw what the first half was, and at least it looked like it was going to be, and then what they did in the third quarter as well. And then things flipped. But you have a lot to get into with Maxey and Embiid, the supporting cast, Kelly Oubre, playoff Miami and playoff Jimmy Butler for what they do. But your thoughts to start us off, man.
I mean, as I just said, what a roller coaster of a game. It's that cycle of we're back, it's over, we're back, it's over, we're back. I'm pretty sure I declared the Sixers were going to lose multiple times after then declaring that they were going to win. So I was like the human embodiment of that during the game. I was getting pissed at the rebounding, pissed at the transition defense, so on and so forth. Frankly, pissed at Kelly Oubre, who then scores 7 of the most important points of that entire game. Here's where I would start. That was an absolute masterpiece from Tyrese Maxey. Like, Joel Embiid started that game really well. I would say 2.5 quarters offensively. Yeah. He's giving Bam the business. He's hitting threes, turnaround jumpers over Jimmy Butler. I thought he showed more confidence in his knee and in his body at times. He's hedging pick and rolls. He's doing all kinds of just moving in space well. But you could tell he didn't have the legs. Tyrese Maxey on offense barely put a foot wrong that entire game. I mean, even if you're just going based on the box score, right? What did he finish the game with? 37 points, 11 rebounds, or 9 rebounds, 11 assists,
triple-double.
1 turnover, shot 57% from the field, ices the game with 2 free throws, and it was an absolute scoring clinic. Like, to me, what that performance reminded me of is Kyrie Irving, because some of those, and thankfully Kyrie Irving and not a wacko off the court and all that, but the shots off the glass where it looks like some of those have no chance to go in. The mixing of speeds, the ability to hit the step back jumpers, frankly, the heavy leaning on the mid-range, which we've talked at times during the season and said that's been one of his weaknesses. But I think over the last month and a half, maybe, that's really come along. Like, that's been a weapon for him. And he's talked about how that's a piece of his game that his dad always harped on him, like, you got to improve that. That's going to be important in the big moments. And he shrugged it off. And now Tyrese is like, Dad, I see the wisdom in that. And so to see him kind of recognize in every stretch of this game where they needed it, Miami went on that monster run to open the second quarter. And I honestly thought the Sixers had played well, at least in terms of the offensive process, and were just missing shots. But they clearly needed someone to grab the game and say, it's all right, guys, we got this. And it ended up falling on Tyrese. And not only did he send them to a lead, they should have gone into halftime up probably like 10 to 15 points. Most of that was because of Tyrese. And for him to get to this point, I think we saw this more at the beginning of the season when Joel was healthy and they did have both these guys. The Embiid-less lineups have been so much better this year because Tyrese has now figured out how to pick his spots, when to step up as a scorer, when to be a playmaker, all that kind of stuff. He was relentless when they needed him to be tonight. He's had bigger games in terms of the point totals. That might be the best game that he's played when you consider the circumstances. It's a big game for playoff positioning and what have you. The playmaking, the lack of turnovers, the scoring, the crunch time stuff, like just an unbelievable game for him.
Before you go, 15 points in the first quarter for Maxey, 9 in the second and the fourth, to your point of his big quarters, only 4 in the third, but when they needed it, the 9 in the fourth.
Yeah, and it really is like, I feel like the first couple years of Tyrese, it's like, yeah, he runs really fast, but what else can he do, especially off the dribble? We talked about this after the last Miami game. I wrote about it recently as well. Miami is so good at denying shots at the rim. They really sell out to prevent those from being there. And Tyrese got a couple of real quick layups early on, and then they adjusted it. And he drilled his deep, deep threes, and he got to his spots in the mid-range. And what he was able to put together against a team that is almost designed to take away his strengths, against a team that has a really good squad of perimeter defenders, and in a game where they really needed him because they either could not do, outside of Tyrese, and Joel in the first half, he was struggling in the second half. Outside of Tyrese, they had nothing consistently going at all. They were playing pretty much nonsense basketball offensively for most of the fourth quarter until Kelly took over. But Tyrese carried them pretty much all night. And I think what Kyle said was correct. When you factor in the defense they were going against, how important the game was, just how the game was flowing and how nobody else was really able that you can rely upon, this was as good of a game as we've seen from Tyrese Maxey all year. And I know he's put up more points. I know he's had huge games. But circumstance, overall play, this was phenomenal.
And you look at the stat line, of course, with the 37 and the assists and the rebounds. He was doing things, again, to help out overall wherever they needed it. Of course, the scoring, but he still had enough energy, as we know. And this is also coming off of missing the game that he did, where it was looking like, okay, is he going to be okay? Is he going to be fine? He missed the previous game on Tuesday against the Oklahoma City Thunder, but he comes right back and he does this, and he gives you the assist. Of course, Embiid helps because that's a target that you have. He probably should have had a few more assists when finding Buddy Hield out there for some open shots. A few others. They couldn't make three-pointers during one stretch where he was finding guys for open opportunities because of the scoring, of course, that he was doing out there individually. But we talk about it so much where we look at this guy as a star player and we wonder, a lot of the question early on when Embiid was there, can Tyrese Maxey team up with him in the postseason? These are essentially postseason games for them now going down the stretch.
That was basically a playoff
game.
In intensity and opponent, all that.
Yes, so he is showing again. Now, while we have seen it in years before, Toronto in first-round matchups where he's putting up 40, where other players are struggling offensively. Boston, where he's trying to crack that code and then ends up in a big Game 5 spot on the road and gives them 30 in that matchup where Embiid goes for 33. To give them a 3-2 lead for Game 6 on their home floor. So we've seen good playoff moments from Tyrese Maxey. And we see this here tonight where he goes out there and sets the tone with Embiid. 15 right out of the gate. He scores 8 of their first 12 right from the start. 2 3-pointers and another mid-range jumper, as Kyle talked about, where they needed that one as well to take some of that pressure right away off of Embiid and show that he can get things started. Where we have seen when Embiid was out, he scores, he sets up others for him to score later on to get them going. So he takes that pressure immediately off. And then as they do their other things with the rest of the teammates, he gets going. So while this may not really answer your question for the postseason when it comes to what's it going to be against whatever opponent it is once we get started in April, we don't know that. But what he is showing you, because again, as Kyle just said, this was a playoff game in every sense of the word for the tie-breaking situation, to avoid any type of play-in possibly, and if so, maybe move up to that 7 seed. And he did so, not only doing it with the numbers, but he did it on the road. He did it against a defense that went zone. He did it against guys where you had Jimmy Butler on him. You had Haywood Highsmith with some energy and some length on him, and he still found a way. Now, he had that one bad play where he had that offensive foul, and Caleb Martin, I believe, picked that one up. But other than that, he was phenomenal tonight. And again, I believe it just simply answers questions that we have at least going into. We'll just, when we get there, if it doesn't play out the way that we think it should based on these performances. But the overall game plus the floor game, just one turnover in all of those minutes. And when we just talked about those minutes in that Cleveland game where he didn't perform well, and we had a couple of people saying he's playing far too many minutes, you're probably right. But having that time off and then coming back and playing big minutes in this outing here against Miami and playing 41 minutes and doing what he did was just a phenomenal showing. And by the way, he got up 14 3-pointers in this one.
Hey,
and
he was
none of
hoisting.
none of them were, what, you can maybe point out 2 that were tough.
Kyle was sitting here, don't pass the ball. You should have the ball the entire 24 seconds. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Kyle was sitting there like, don't give, because Joel took a bad 3-pointer in the corner where he didn't need to take that. Well, he had to shoot it, but it didn't need to be that shot. But to Derek's point, Kyle was like, don't
even
give
pass
up the ball.
Just pull up right now.
Your shot is better than anybody's
Spend
shot.
23 seconds dribbling and 1 shooting the ball was my mentality at the end of that game.
One quick point of clarification. The tiebreaker for two-way ties. First is head-to-head one-loss percentage. That's now tied 2-2.
2-2.
Second is division leader. Neither team's a division leader. That doesn't matter. Third is division one-loss percentage. Unfortunately, Miami is 12-4 in the conference. The Sixers are 8-8. So they're not going to win that one. Unless it's a multi-team tie, I would have to then look at, then it goes into games against the commonality between the three.
Just get me to a point where it's a coin flip scenario.
So they're going to have to finish ahead.
Or how about just win one more game than them at the end so we don't have to go through all of that.
Win out, and that's all. I saw we had a super chat from Puppas who simply said, Tyrese Maxey, we agree, buddy. We agree.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal win. It really was. Really big win by them to get that one done. And just, simply looking at how they did that, you give a lot of credit to what Miami was. And Derek, we've talked about this. Miami in the playoffs is Miami. So if we look at it from the Sixers standpoint, and it's a playoff game, they did just that here tonight. And part of it was the Terry Rozier piece that we all discussed of, if no one else wants him, maybe the Sixers look into it. You worry about the extra year if he had that on there a little bit later on, but you can see why. But again, Jimmy Butler, people are talking about Kevin Love, giving him credit, turning back the clock a little bit on the glass for what he has done in the past. But they had to really earn this one there tonight.
Yeah, and look, Miami was a pain in the ass in this one too. Like what they did to the Sixers to get them out of sorts at the end of quarters, and now a lot of that was self-inflicted when you commit to consecutive turnovers on inbounds passes. That's not great. And then whatever Joel tried to do there in the last 5 seconds of the second quarter, a whole bunch of frustrating there. But on the glass, they were a menace. The Sixers really struggled to contain them on the glass.
Some of these comments are getting wild tonight, by the way.
I'm sure.
I'd say it's rated R. I would say that.
That's all right. This show is occasionally rated R too. That's fine. That's fine.
Sixers after dark, man.
It's a late night show. That's fine. But if Tyrese Maxey doesn't go completely AWOL or completely nuts there throughout the whole game, if Kelly Oubre doesn't come up big there down the stretch, we would be having a very different conversation. To Kyle's point, like that run that Miami had in the second quarter, I didn't mind really at all. At that point, you were missing wide open corner threes. Joel was missing mid-range jumpers. Batum missed like a 4-footer. Meanwhile, Hayward Highsmith was banking in threes from the top of the key. Like that one, I think, was mostly luck. But
you guys heard me bitching about that Bam banked in three in the second half. I was like, come on, man. The Miami alligator blood is just unbelievable.
But the end of the first, the end of the second, the end of the third, what the Sixers did to start the fourth, like the Sixers were being out-hustled. The Sixers were being out-executed for most of the fourth quarter. They stepped up when they needed to. They got a huge win. Miami does scare me, in part because they're Miami, in part because it's a one-game play-in. But getting that at your home floor would be huge, and this was if they lose this game, they have pretty much no chance of finishing ahead of the Heat.
I like how they, just tucked in their jerseys, pulled up their socks, and got after it in the end to pull out the victory. And if you were, in fact, placing a little bit of wager on your basketball team as you got ready for this matchup against Miami, and you couldn't really find a spot to go to, well, you know what? Listen, this is the place for you to go, and that's our good friends from Bet Parks. And you got to get in the zone with Bet Parks Sportsbook app. I have it on my phone here. Hope you get to yours as well as we get to these next 5 games for Philadelphia. You're feeling good about your basketball team looking at the schedule here to close things out. I'm already seeing 6-0 in the chat for your home team. So if you're able to do that and you're saying, hey, now they go on the road, Saturday and Sunday in San Antonio and Memphis. When you flip it, Memphis, San Antonio, and you're feeling again good about some of those lower level teams against your squad that is really trying to secure themselves, if not 6th in the 7th seed, make sure you go to our friends at the BetParx Sportsbook app. Why? Because you're looking at number 0 for your Philadelphia squad, going out there, dropping 37 tonight, and you believe that he has the ability to do so again against Memphis or San Antonio this upcoming weekend. Well, money is in the moments, and the events coming up here for the Sixers over the stretch of this next few games here with the 5, this is the spot for you to go. I don't know the line as of yet for Philadelphia against Memphis, but I'd imagine it's probably going to be close to double digits. If you feel good about them going there in Memphis, revenge games, people, remember this. And if the big fella, the former MVP, is playing, you give them a pretty good chance of taking down while they fight hard for Memphis. You can still get that W. Win big with all-day action. Win your first $10 bet, and you earn $125 in sports bonus bets. If you're looking for your baseball team, big series coming up again this weekend, maybe that's the spot for you to go once again. Philadelphia back on the baseball field, feeling good about what they can do because of their lineup and their pitching staff. Well, BetParx is a spot for you. You play for fun. You love to win. You bet. Download the app. Play along with us. Must be 21 or older. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Well, guys, as you saw immediately after this game, I needed to choose chill because that was quite a game we had here. Those Rocky Mountains on the Coors Light can still blue. I think the glare is a little bad, but trust me, still a cold beer. There is always a chiller way, and you can choose chill just like I did by reaching for an ice cold Coors Light. With Coors Light, you know you're getting an ice cold beer because the mountains turn blue on the bottles and cans when they hit that perfect temperature. There will be more stressful basketball games coming up. I can promise you that. They may be regular season. They may be play-in. They may be legitimate playoff games against the likes of Milwaukee, Boston, Cleveland, New York, whoever it might be.
Man, they better be. Oh, we don't need to go there.
Listen,
we don't need to go there.
We will choose chill regardless. It is the point here. And when you reach for a Coors Light, you'll know what you're getting when it arrives because it's a cold layered, cold filtered, cold packaged beer that has a smooth finish, mountain cold refreshment. Don't let the haters in Denver keep you down like they try to do me. The haters anywhere else for that matter. Choose chill with a crisp and refreshing beer. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
All right, well, looking at what Tyrese Maxey did with his game best 37, we also talked about his running mate for tonight, right, Derek? 29 on 11 for 25. He played 32 minutes and 40 seconds. He was out for a good portion of that fourth quarter.
We weren't sure if he was going to come back.
Yeah, because you had Paul Reed out there with KJ Martin also in the closing lineup, which was interesting, and we can get into that as well. But again, they did turn it up to have that 15-3 run to end the game. He did look, again, pretty good. Outside of a little scare there where he was grabbing at his knee a bit. Also had Bam Adebayo fall on his right knee. You saw him adjusting that knee brace once again for the second consecutive game. That's going to be a thing, folks, so don't be alarmed by that. He's going to continue to pull at that. I mentioned on the last show that we talked about when I tore my ACL and I had the very same brace. He has bigger legs. I have a smaller leg, but they fit it for your leg. You're constantly pulling it up.
bigger legs than you?
Little bit. You're constantly pulling up that brace because it continues to slide down because of course, the running, the motion, the bending, and the sweat. But overall, 29, rebounding not there, but the defensive presence, once again, the shot making was there, rebounding not there tonight.
Yeah.
But the defensive presence, you can tell, especially from Bam Adebayo, that they were concerned about Embiid defensively.
Yeah, and it was weird because I feel like through the first quarter and a half, I was actually in my notes, I have it written like, hey, it looks like he's like the latter portions of his stint, he looks like he has more energy. He's moving around better. Like the first game back, you'd get minute 3, minute 4 of that stint, and he looked like he was completely gassed. Throughout the first half, I thought he looked better, and then it kind of felt like the wheels fell off on that a little bit. You could start seeing it on the boards a lot. He was just not moving outside of his zone for rebounds, and you could see it in terms of getting back in transition. I thought that's where his lack of wind really showed itself. But more or less, I think he's moving well. I do think this was a better effort in terms of his mobility and wind in game one. And I think it'll continue to get better. But I do think that's two areas where it hurt him a little bit. But man, he's just like, you just get reminded how easy it is for him to score the basketball at times. And he had a couple of real nice passes. There was an interior pass to, was it KJ? I forget who it was in the first half. It's somewhere in my notes, but I ended up taking way too many notes. He had a real nice interior pass. He had a couple of other good kickouts. I thought this was a game where if he was peak Embiid, you would see, like, this could be a really tough matchup for Miami. He really does have success against Bam. And if they over-rotate and the Sixers are making shots, which they weren't doing for portions of this game, the Sixers have a chance to run them out of that zone. I know a lot of people will freak out about the zone Miami played. I don't think the zone really got to them all that much. I think their pressure in terms of bringing the ball up and in transition, I think that got to them a little bit. But I don't think the zone, I think they got mostly good shots. It's just they couldn't shoot for a good quarter and a half there. But no, I think overall I'm happy with what I've seen from Embiid. I think he's moving around better than I expected. The mid-range touch and the shooting touch was certainly there in the first half. Now it's just getting his win back.
Yeah, and so you brought up the defense. I think the most important takeaway for me is that I think you've seen on offense at the end of these games that he hasn't had the shouldn't say the legs. He hasn't had the lungs, right? Like, he's been sucking wind a little bit. His defense to close these last two games has been unbelievable. Like, absolutely blowing up plays, beating guys to spots, played some isolation defense on, I want to say it was Terry Rozier at one point at the end of tonight's game where I got worried. Frankly, he got some help from Kelly Oubre in the middle of the floor, and we'll probably get to Kelly at some point because if we don't, Phil W is going to have a stroke in the comments. But that to me is the most encouraging thing. Like, for Joel to not be where he needs to be yet from a conditioning perspective and still having that gear to get to, finding those ways to win at the end of games. He was not driving offense whatsoever at the end of that game. That was Tyrese, that was Kelly, some other contributions. But he absolutely, in that final 3-4 minutes, was a difference maker on defense. And you can see, like, that is why historically teams have wanted to build around big men. Part of it is how the sport was played and where shots are taken, all that. But when you have a guy who can completely control the game on defense, lock down the paint, stop drivers, and then also step out and blow plays up. And I feel like, I don't know if the stats support this, I feel like he's gotten a lot more impactful steals in big moments this year. I don't know why that feels that way to me. Yeah. It's like in my head, maybe it's just overreacting to the last two games, but has felt that way at times this year. If he can play that level of defense consistently in the playoffs, look out.
I said it to you early on as we were watching it, and it was how Bam Adebayo was just simply affected by his presence out there. You mentioned the Bam Adebayo piece, but it was just, you could see how he wasn't really shooting it. And when he was shooting, he had to really alter it and never, we all know what we're talking about when we say he's not shooting the ball. He's not getting a good follow through on the ball. He's just getting the shot off because the Joel Embiid is there. It reminds me,
do you remember when Joel tried to shoot over Wemby? No, obviously he scored a lot, but like the first shot or two, he had to like completely adjust his arc, and it was like,
do you remember when he walked next to him at first and was like, oh shit, this guy's actually huge.
Now Joe's obviously talented enough to adjust to that, had a historic night, but when you're that much taller, it definitely impacts your release.
But remember, even when it was Marjanovic, when he was with the Spurs years ago, when he first had to, when it was a good Marjanovic.
he had some real good reactions to Boban too.
Yeah, exactly. But Bam Adebayo was not shooting the basketball. And then at some point, it was just in his head. And he could not get any good rhythm while Joel Embiid was out there on the floor. He even tried to put the ball on the floor, get to the basket. He walled that off by himself. He didn't need any help there. And Bam Adebayo would pick the basketball up, try to pivot, turn, find, and get rid of the basketball, essentially taking himself out of the play. And that, of course, could be something for the postseason should they get there and have to face them in the play-in. And you would have to feel good about what Embiid, of course, has done in the past. And, of course, Bam is an all-star, and we know what he can do and how he can get going. But he was out of this game. He could not get into any kind of flow. And even defensively, while he did have 11 rebounds, it never seemed like those 11 rebounds had an impact on the game at all. Kevin Love's rebounds seemed like they had more of an impact than Bam Adebayo's.
Yeah, Kevin Love going to the HGH factory in Miami to rejuvenate his career. I'm just joking, by the way. I'm not saying that Kevin Love is on the juice. Miami is a great conditioning program for reasons that are not steroids. I'm just messing around.
I want to point out one thing. I mentioned earlier that the next tiebreaker would be divisional record. That only applies if you're in the same division. So the next tiebreaker is actually conference record, and that is much closer. Currently, the Heat are 29-20 in the conference, and the Sixers are 29-21.
Oh, wow.
So that's a
going to
big
be a
change,
photo
big
finish,
change.
man.
Yes.
Jeez.
There's an asterisk that I missed, and I apologize for that. The next tiebreaker up.
What the fuck
is
do we have you here
conference.
for?
Of the 5, they have 3 Eastern Conference games and the 2 West Coast games, right?
I have to look through this. Yeah, I forget. I don't know what Miami has, though.
San Antonio
Yeah.
and Memphis are the 2, and then the 3.
Martian Lynch, by the way, said more like pebbles out of bio. So if I had a hat, I'd give you the hat tip on that one. But that was very good.
The duo, the 2-man game that we saw from Embiid and Maxey tonight, just your thoughts in general. You laid out each of what they did individually, but of course the 15 for Maxey in the first, and Joel Embiid was no slouch. He had 13 in the first. The 2-man game, the duo that you saw with those two, it was pretty much right where they left off when Embiid went out.
And I think, but I'm going to say it anyway. You could see it the most early, right? Because Joel was cooking as well as Tyrese, and you could almost see the gears turning in the heads of Miami players. Like before, if you're running a pick and roll or pick and pop, Tyrese and Mo Bamba, Tyrese and Paul Reed, Tyrese and a small ball center, perhaps, you're just selling out against Tyrese, right? Like you can overplay it, you can hedge, you can hard double, you can trap. You can't do that when Joel Embiid's the guy's going to get the ball. You're going to allow him to play 4-on-3 and just go straight to the rim, where he's one of the best foul drawers in the league, also is huge, also has a great touch, also apparently discovered how to shoot free throw line floaters while he was injured. I don't know if he was working on that shot, but he hit a few of those tonight. So
we were like, oh, this is new.
But I think you see exactly what Joel's presence does for Tyrese, because his speed becomes so much more of a weapon when, if there's any hesitation from the second defender in a ball screen action involving those two, he's going right by you. Like you do not have the opportunity to hesitate against him. And then on top of that, obviously, like the 2-man game is great. Tyrese did an excellent job of using leverage, using his shoulder, using his hips, leaning into guys, so he could create just enough separation to get these shots. Like that's the difference between a small guard being ineffective, inefficient, and being able to put together these type of absolute masterclass, hyper efficient performances inside the arc, to the point that you can shoot, 5 for 14 from 3, and he still ends up, his inside the line night was ridiculous. And he's making everything. Basically.
You got to let me say, my favorite one was, I believe it was in the third quarter, and it was Martin and another wing player. And guys, gals, Sixer people out there, he went right, and as he cut that corner, while of course he's going with his speed, they had no idea. I think it was Jovic who was there, and he was the other one. And he just cut the corner and still had that angle, basically on an angle slanted with his body still on another angle, going to the basket while still in a pretty good, 85 miles per hour speed, but enough to get the scoop up with the right, keeping the left arm back, where it was, okay, guys, if you touch me with your arm on my left, you're probably going to get a foul there. And he got the scoop and he finished. And we always talk about, I remember him telling me once that he likes the levels of the backboards, and that's where his target is. Level 1, level 2, level 3. And we've seen a lot of them where they have been the level 1, coming off around that screen, pick up the ball one hand, not two, just one hand, so you go right into that motion of laying up. We see that's very popular in basketball today. But when he does, and again, it's against some length there, he goes high off of that glass on that third level of what he likes to do.
That's when I was thinking of Kyrie,
and that was my favorite.
Right,
those finishes with the kiss that he can just, that was my favorite one of cutting that angle the way that he did with his body, contorted the way that he did, and still against two guys that had no idea of how do we do this without fouling him and finishing at the rim. It was just a great, great play by a fantastic player, of course.
Yeah. It really is wild. The Sixers gave up, I think it was a combined 23-0 run at the end of the three quarters. They shot only 50% at the rim, which is disastrous. Like, that should be about 65%, especially when you consider how often they got out in transition. They shot 1 for 9 from the corners. Joel Embiid was completely gassed. And they shot, add another stat up, it doesn't matter. All because Tyrese Maxey carried them throughout the night, and they got pummeled in transition. That was a stat. It was the Miami ran on half of their live defensive rebounds, legitimately half. When you have that many things going against you, you should not win a game against a playoff caliber opponent. They won it because Tyrese Maxey was absolutely, truly absurd, and because Kelly Oubre stepped up when they needed him.
One more thing before we get to a couple more of our friends that we'd like to thank for helping us make these shows. I think to the point that both of you are just making, but Devon, that play you're talking about, a lot of times when we talk about great athletes, right, we talk about speed, burst, verticality. Like, can you jump? Can you run fast? Can you change gears quickly? I think the most underrated athletic trait is balance. Like,
yes.
Guys who can get hit, play through it, guys who can lean into people, stay upright, keep their shoulders square, and keep going. And I think when Tyrese is at his best, it's when he is showing that balance, when you can see that the core strength is there, when he's getting hit by bigger guys, or frankly, when he's hitting those bigger guys first, but he's staying straight. Like, he remains on the same path. He is the one leveraging the strength that he has, leveraging, he's lower to the ground than a lot of these guys that are defending him, going right through them. And even as he's getting hit on the arm, on the shoulder, and the hip, whatever it is, somewhere in the body, he's still able to stay square to the basket. I think, honestly, it's one of the things I respect the most about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, another tremendous player, is going to be in the top 3 of MVP
Kentucky
voting this
guy.
year.
Yep.
His balance is unbelievable. Like, if you watch his ankles from time to time, they're like completely inverted, and he's still just gliding around defenders. He's taking goofy footed layups. Like, Tyrese had a few of those shots tonight where he's jumping off the right foot and then finishing with the right hand, which, go to a gym, like an empty gym, and do that. That is not as easy as it sounds, even with nobody guarding you. So that's the thing that struck me tonight, is just seeing he gets hit with all kinds of bodies, defenders, limbs. He's taking step back jumpers, but he's still able to keep square to the basket, and that's what allows him to have success. But
Not just on those drives, though. Also in
Correct.
those mid-range shots where he does have to, again, square, contort his body that way.
And even on those
Get the
threes, man, he hit
shoulders.
that double tap Harden step back 3 that was huge. Like, that kind of footwork is crazy. It took Harden years to develop that, and Tyrese saw him in practice a couple days, was like, I got this.
You know what else
sure
is
did.
huge? Pause on that, by the way. The giant Brooklyn-style bagels from our friends at Bagels & Co. that are made here in Philadelphia. Guys, I eat bagels several days a week, and Bagels & Co. offers an average of around 15 to 20 types of bagels. Come on, I had to do that transition. You knew that.
That's a good one.
They rotate those bagels seasonally, and every time you walk in, they might have something new. It's the winter, it's the spring, it's the summer, it's the fall. They got holiday-themed stuff. They got new flavors that rotate in all the time, and if you're a cream cheese person like I am, they offer 30 different flavors of cream cheese to put on those different bagels. They rotate those throughout the year as well. We always say we're a sports show. They have sports-themed cream cheeses. Many times we're here after a loss, and I'm saying, nah, push that Sixers-themed cream cheese aside. Serve it up tonight, guys. Go to Bagels & Co. tomorrow. Get that Sixers-themed cream cheese. And just as important as the variety in bagels and cream cheese is the affordability. Bagels & Co. has kept their prices down so you can be an everyday customer, not just someone who comes in for a weekend splurge. They even offer premium coffee at a superior price to most national brands and chains. So for the best Brooklyn-style bagels made right here in Philly, head to www.thebagelsandco.com/store-locator to find the closest Bagels & Co. near you.
I just want to say, when you use that huge transition, I'm so glad that you were transitioning to your read and not Devon's
That's why
read.
I did it. And then I fucking nailed the ad read.
If that would have been a transition to Devon's read, I would have gotten a little bit concerned.
I'm wearing that T-shirt one of these nights when we do a show.
Anyway, we also want to make sure we tell you about Game Time, because if you watch that game today and you don't want to get down to the Wells Fargo Center, then I'm not sure you have a working heart, because that was absolutely absurd. A whole lot more coming where that came from. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest growing ticket app in the country for a reason. With Game Time, you get images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive, and you can buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set, with tickets sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And a lot of people asking about the mug, too. Yeah, Ron, a few people asking about the mug. Maybe we'll have some soon, potentially. If not,
we'll have to talk. We'll have our people talk to other people see if we can get to.
And in any event, maybe I can find a way to send you one, Ron, and just put some newspaper in there, wrap it up nicely, and I'll get you.
And by the way, I can attest to these being rock solid, because one fell out of one of my cabinets, hit my finger, split a plate down the middle, and did not receive a single dent in it. So it was not the mug's fault. It was placed incorrectly in the cabinet. Those things are quality. So if they do go on sale at any point, we'll let you know. By the way, I saw Parth in the chat saying unreal, getting a pause from Kyle. I did spend my teenage years in like the heyday of Cameron and the Diplomats, and Cameron might be the most prominent user of pause in
even still
all of the world. So
right.
That's what I would credit that to.
All right, before we get to Kelly Oubre, because we have to talk about his impressive fourth quarter again, coming through in a big spot. We got to talk about the PHLY locker. Go to PHLYlocker.com, because when we're doing this and we're talking about Tyrese Maxey, we got to tell you all to go. Of course, get our hoodies, the PHLY hoodie. You can get the MVBead shirts there, and you got to go. He's on fire. Yeah. NBA Jam, Tyrese Maxey, he's on fire. T-shirts there available on our PHLYlocker.com site, so go check it out. And again, the MVP there as well, and our PHLY Sixers hoodies, royal blue, but the He's on Fire was perfect. I like how
to promote this ad read. We have a chicken and egg hoodie and a mug.
We're always wearing PHLY merch, except for the time that we're promoting it on a great post-game stream.
And a mug that you can't buy on PHLY Locker.
Hey, Maxie, next time you go off like that, let us know so we can do better in promoting our stuff. But look, Kelly,
mug's fantastic, by the way. I've got like 4 of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we got a ton of them, and we'll get to our super chats here in just a bit as well. But fourth quarter, dare we say, fourth quarter Oubre coming up big when they needed him. 7 points, 7 minutes and 33 seconds, man. 3 of 4 in the fourth. He had a big 3, Kyle, big 3, Derek, that he had to knock down there. A rebound. As well in there, and he was phenomenal, man. That 5-point stretch that he had there that the Sixers needed specifically, Kelly Oubre coming up big again in the clutch.
Yeah, and look, the defense to get out in transition too. Like, he was big defensively down the stretch as well, and it's really easy to get caught up in the 7 points. And obviously, the 7 points were huge. That corner 3 was a game changer. But he throughout the night, and look, I think his decision making, his offense up until the last 3 or 4 minutes of the fourth quarter wasn't great. He's been on a great stretch, so this is just one off night. But what I will give him a lot of credit for, besides the 7 points, which, again, probably swung the game, I thought his defense throughout the night was consistent.
Yes.
I give him a lot of credit for that. They really needed him and Kyle Lowry, especially in this matchup. He was really good defensively all night and really huge down the stretch. That corner 3 just, like I said, completely changed the game.
Big down the stretch. They needed that one. Of course, at that time, the score, he had a quick 5, and that gave the lead to the Sixers 103-102 with 3:30 to play. The driving layup and the corner triple. Embiid came back in after that timeout that Miami called. Paul Reed out. Again, even there, Paul Reed, decent there during that stretch, and KJ Martin as well. The only one that I got on KJ Martin for, it was a loose ball right around 35 feet, and he didn't dive on the floor. He eventually got the ball, but he didn't dive on the floor where I thought he could have had that initial one at the very least. But your thoughts on Oubre?
I mean, I'm really glad that Derek brought up the defense, right? Because everyone's going to focus on the hot stretch to end the game, and was very important, right? They don't win the game without him catching fire. And
he finished with 18, by the way, on 8 of 14 shooting.
And had not had the greatest game offensively up to that point. Mm-hmm. But I've been trying to hammer this point on the show recently. Contrast Buddy Hield and Kelly Oubre, right? Buddy Hield missed a bunch of open shots tonight. And you could sum his game up by just saying that, because we know what we're getting out of Buddy Hield on the other end of the floor, which is to say very little. He has not been good. He's never been good off ball. I don't think he's been great on the ball recently either. Kelly, by contrast, and historically, and we said coming into the year, a lot of concerns about his awareness and staying engaged all the time. I think on top of being a switchable, good on-ball defender for most of this year, this last, let's say, month, maybe month and a half, I'd have to go back and find wherever the delineation point is. His off-ball reads, his rotations, his help defense have been on point. He's blowing up plays pretty consistently. He's coming up. He had a nice block at the rim. I believe that was in the first half, if I remember correctly. I'm not exactly sure when that happened, but he's pretty consistently putting out fires away from the ball. Like, Kelly's got the athletic tools to defend a lot of guys. Like, you kind of take that for granted to a certain extent. And I do think that the way the league has evolved, man defense is not always as important anymore. So to see him take this step where he is now consistently playing good off-ball defense, that gives him a chance where when he has a bad shooting game, it does matter, but it doesn't matter as much because he's able to still make plays. He's blowing plays up in crunch time on top of the scoring, right? Like, part of the reason he got, I think, at least one or two of those buckets was because he either created a turnover or he was part of the defensive sequence that got them to stop and got them running the other way. So I keep saying it over and over again, even though Phil W. pretends that this doesn't happen and he's always coming into the chat like, you got to talk about Oubre. We've been on the Oubre, I don't want to say the Oubre bandwagon, but we've been giving Kelly a ton of praise because he has silenced all the things that actually bothered me about Kelly. Not all of them, but I would say 90% of the things that bothered me about Kelly at his previous stops. He has either cut them out, minimized them, or actively improved in different areas. Even when he's turning the ball over, and there were some howlers tonight that we were just laughing at, like that one half-court entry pass he made to Embiid. He's at least looking to make plays. The whole problem coming into the year was that he did not pass. His reputation is he's a black hole. The ball goes to Kelly and it doesn't go anywhere else except toward the basket. So he has shut up a lot of people. He has dispelled a lot of notions that people have had about him. So I keep saying it. He should be proud of the growth he's shown. The coaching staff has clearly done a good job to get through to him. He has been excellent lately. Nothing bad to say about him.
Getting his hand in there late on those dribble handoffs where he's blowing up the play. Also, Nick Batum had another one where he was frustrated with a couple of passes there for 2 consecutive turnovers.
And Kyle,
off
too.
of his
Kyle
passes. And then the Kyle Lowry one also there.
Kyle Lowry strapping up Jimmy Butler in crunch time.
Kyle Lowry was on Jimmy Butler. Kelly Oubre was on Terry Rozier down the stretch. And I put it in here in my notes because Maxey got the followed up when they took the 103-102 lead. Maxey then had a tough baseline fadeaway in front of the Miami bench to give them the lead 105-102. And then I put there following up, Lowry, great defense on Jimmy Butler, who he had him on the post on the right block. Jimmy had him, but Kyle Lowry knows Jimmy Butler, not only playing against him for years, but being teammates the last 2.5 years in Miami. knows his game, knows what he likes, knows his spots. Why? Because as a point guard, you want to get your player into those good spots so you also know what he may not like in that regard. And Lowry did a phenomenal job there defensively down the stretch, forcing him to pick up the ball and then turn into the help defense that rotated to help him, to force him deep into the shot clock, to force them to a tough shot, which the ball then found Rozier, where Oubre defended him, forcing him. Where he had some tough shots that he made in this game, Rozier, Oubre slowed him down there. So we give them credit for Batum, Lowry, and Oubre there defensively down the stretch, where we've already talked about Joel Embiid changing and altering shots where they were fearful of getting in there. And then, of course, Tyrese Maxey doing some decent things defensively as well. So you have to give them credit. We talked about Buddy Hield and his struggles. 0 for 6, 0 for 4 from deep. He played just under 12 minutes. At one point, Campaign, who was not great, but he did hit a big shot that they needed there in that first part of the fourth quarter. There was a lineup, a backcourt of Payne, Lowry, and Maxey out there with Oubre and Reed on the floor. And that was because, my opinion, before he subbed in Oubre and getting in Martin and Reed, getting one other player in the game, is because Buddy Hield just simply could not make a shot. And while you're not doing anything defensively where you're getting beat, you have to make your shots. And he had good looks from the perimeter that he did not make those shots. He even had a layup where he was fouled and he made the 2 free throws. But we were saying at the time, Derek, you still have to make that layup in that transition bucket. But that's why he was not on the floor. And he has become a problem here, where he had that one good game against Cleveland where they needed the stuff that they needed the production offensively. But he has to find a way to knock these shots down. That's why he's here.
Yeah, and look, eventually I think Buddy's shot's going to come around, especially if he spends more time with Joel. The problem with Buddy, as it always has been, is can he do enough when the shot's not going down to stay on the floor and shoot himself out of a slump? Like, I don't think he forgot how to shoot. I think he's getting good looks. It would be one thing if he was struggling, like if he was a guy who really relied on creating off the dribble, and now I'm 31, he's not able to do that. No, I think he's still getting pretty good open looks. It's just he's not making them, and when he's not making them, you really see the deficiencies in the rest of his game. And it is, like, it's frustrating. It's frustrating as hell because he was so good to start when he first got here. And you looked at it and you said, he should fit in really well with Embiid. Well, he has to actually make those shots. And I want to go back and look at it. He still feels like he's playing a little too much without Embiid. But I think Nick Nurse wants Kyle Lowry on with Embiid so much that has created a little bit of a logjam there. It'll be interesting to see how they manage it and how they manage his minutes. If he ends up playing in the playoffs like 10 to 15 a night, that would be a pretty big disappointment considering the 3 second-round picks they gave up.
Yeah. I had a thought for a second to bring up the guy who didn't play tonight and the fluidity they played with without him, but I'm going to choose Chill. And I'm going to say we have a bunch of super chats to get to, we should probably start hearing from our people.
Pointed it out for you about the guy who did not play tonight.
Yeah,
so.
I will leave that to you guys. By the way, we had like hellos from Nicaragua. I know Papa's is in England, or at least the UK. I don't remember if it's England or not, but we've got people coming from all over tonight. So we love that you're all here. Bree, we're going to have to queue up some super chats.
There's been a bunch, yeah.
Coach Lil Ricketts start us off.
Run the table, get the 6th seed.
Eat the shoe, Derek.
So wait, did I miss when you promised you were going to eat a shoe?
Was he at the game?
I don't remember if that was a post game, but it's been brought up pretty much every
I keep
show
seeing
for a week.
It, and I haven't wanted to fuel the fire, but now there's a super chat related to it.
I'm pretty sure on that show that night I said, look, obviously I can't eat a shoe. You can't medically do that. I will find something else if it comes to that.
We said we will find something.
I'll find a replacement that's not going to send me to the hospital. But
made in the form of a shoe that he can
I still don't think they're catching both Miami and the Pacers, but it's certainly looking a lot better now than it did 2 hours ago, so we'll see.
Eat the shoe.
We'll see.
Eat the shoe.
Bootzilla, regular listener, watcher, however you want to call it. Bootzilla says, which game would you rather rest Embiid on back-to-back, Spurs or Grizz?
Selfishly, you want to see him play against Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
Selfishly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there
and he would have 2 days off.
There are two schools of thought, right? It's one, you go for what I think is the easier win, and you play them against Memphis and you just let the chips fall where they may against San Antonio, or you give them these next couple of days off, you bring them back rested for the tougher opponent in San Antonio. At least I think they're the tougher opponent. They're both not very good, One just happens to have Victor Wembanyama,
Exactly.
who is
That's the
putting together
difference. Right.
a dominant end of season. Although, didn't they just rule out, is it Vassell and Jeremy Sochan for the rest of the season,
Did
I
they?
believe?
That would be-
I missed that.
Now,
Okay.
Vassell is a loss. Jeremy Sochan playing him
Yeah.
a point guard is like active sabotage, if you're asking me. So maybe like 6 and 1.
Yeah.
I think
half dozen
Vassell's
in the
been
other.
pretty important with what they're doing.
Yeah.
So,
Look, they should beat both of those teams, but for viewership and just simply wanting to see a better matchup because of those two, Wembanyama versus Embiid.
He dropped 70 on them the last time they played.
Exactly.
You gotta
Exactly.
let him return serve.
Right. And he's playing much better at this stage of the season is Victor Wembanyama. So, you know what, man? If rest him against Memphis and play him, have 2 days off and play San Antonio. But look, they should beat both of those teams, to be perfectly honestly with you, Boots. Cortland Pazzi says, is the 5th seed out of the question, Derek? The 5th seed. Right now,
seed.
they are currently
Playoffs.
3.5 games
Fifth
back.
seed.
yeah.
3.5 games
out of the
back.
question.
It's out of the
Yes.
question.
They're
Yes.
4 back in the loss column from a team that owns the tiebreaker.
With 5 games
against
left to
them.
play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it would take an Angels in the outfield level miracle for them to somehow come up with the 5th seed.
I will say, though, like everyone above them, honestly, Orlando's playing as good at basketball as anyone in the East outside of Boston right now. Milwaukee's struggling. Cleveland has been playing 500 ball for a long time. The Knicks just lost Randall for the season. The Heat you just beat. There's no, outside of Boston, there's no dominant team right now.
Go on a run, baby.
That's why this, let's just, schedule-wise, if 6, 7, or 8, either way, if it's 6 that they get, they set themselves up pretty well for that first-round matchup. It's going to be a tough opponent, but the pathway there, though, is pretty good.
It is.
It's pretty good. Ash Monroe, our good friend, we back up officially.
Yeah, baby.
So many positives here, so many things to tighten up, but to come back from down 8 points with 6 minutes to play left in the game is gut check. This team's reached great team defense in the clutch, and Devon now 28-8 with Joel Embiid in the lineup.
We all have access to stats, and yet Ash is our most important statistician in the entire world for this show. So we appreciate you for that, Ash, and we certainly appreciate the $10 donation.
Absolutely,
Thank you very
Ash.
much.
We appreciate 28-8, man.
And I will say, when I called on him in the chat earlier today, he was much quicker than he was last show.
There we go.
Took him a little while last time, but much better effort this
Joel
one.
Embiid is back. That's why.
We have one from Brian, but I think that's Brian anyway, right? Yeah, Brian.
Just wanted to contribute to the
Looks
show.
like they just wanted to contribute. Brian, if you do have a specific question you wanted to ask, drop it in. I'm sure super producer Bree will see it, but thank you regardless for checking in the
All
super
right, Kyle.
chat.
You got this one from Jay.
What up, Jay? He says, the vibes are fucking back. Fellas, that's right. With 2 fire emojis, a salute, and a flex. Let's go.
Like Kelly did over Jimmy Butler on that steal and ahead and put his shoulder in
I'm
the
not
Jimmy
choosing chill right
on the
now.
layup.
It really is, though. The roller coaster of an NBA season is freaking
man.
wild. Like, there's a lot of people in the chat right now. There were significantly less people in the middle of March. But if you would have been in that chat, if you would have been in that chat while the Sixers were losing and Embiid was out, Morey should have been fired. Nick Nurse wasn't any good. Tyrese Maxey, you can't max him out on. Like, the overreactions every time there is a swing in the season.
I like the positive overreactions
Sure.
a lot more than the negative
But
ones.
like, I think we were all aware of it before, but now talking to everyone on a daily basis, 5 days a week, it is even more pronounced.
We need a deep run from this team because we're not ready for the offseason to begin. And the stuff to talk about from this season, should they have a deep run from the Embiid injury, Maxey missing some games, Harris the same thing, Melton with his back, Kelly Oubre missing games for whatever the heck happened, where he's hit by a car and comes back, and now all of a sudden people want to give him 4 years and $80 million, right? And trading Patrick Beverly and Kyle Lowry coming home. The storylines that we have for this team, should they make a deep run in the postseason, so much to talk about.
You just brought it up, though. Like, when the season ends, that transition happens so quickly, and in part happens because it feels like we're on the road every time. But it's like at one point you're sitting there at Game 7 in Toronto. The next minute it's like, oh, there's nothing to do in a week. There's nothing to. It blows my mind.
Inside baseball on that one. I don't know if I brought it up on this show. I've definitely talked about it. So I drove to Game 7 in Toronto with Sarah Todd, previously the Inquirer, Mark Narducci, previously the Inquirer, with the plan being, I don't know what the plan was, that we'd have more time to get back to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Well, the Sixers, while we're in Toronto, say, hey, exit interviews are at 9 a.m. the next day. And we left. So the ride back was myself, Rich Hoffman, our guy, shout out to Rich, and Sarah Todd. We drove through the night from Toronto to the Camden practice facility, no sleep. We all filed our stories by 1 a.m. Eastern time and drove essentially 8 straight hours with stops mixed in. Middle of the night, driving rain, and then did 3 hours of exit interviews. And I've never felt, I shouldn't say I've never felt closer to death, but I definitely saw like some people that are no longer with me in my personal life that I was like, please get me through this day.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
No, it was that same series. On the other end of it, Game 1, somehow there was like fog and flights were getting canceled out of Philly. And it's like, what are you talking about? You're canceling it for fog. I ended up having to drive up by myself for Game 1.
You love to drive though. You're like Mr. Drive long distance.
But I wasn't planning on it at that time. I had a ticket, but Rich and I were sitting there in the airport like, well, one of us has got to make sure we're up there. So I just drove up there. Always fun driving up to Toronto randomly.
We might need Bree to read the next one from You a Fraud, because I feel like any of us reading that is a little bit.
All right, let's see what Bree has for
Bree
us here.
checking in with You a Fraud.
What's up, guys? Glad to see you 3 guys back together. 3 of the best Sixers minds united once again. From You a Fraud.
Well, 4 because we have Bree at minimum. Bree is with us, but thank you, You a Fraud. I will not take that credit, but these guys certainly.
Nah, we appreciate it, and we'll include Rich.
I mean,
in that
there's only
as
one
well.
Oh yeah, Rich too. So let's say
Include
5.
Rich in that.
He's not here, but he's certainly there.
That's why we say super producer Bree got her with it. She had the Maxey T-shirt ready on the fly, just like that, and of course, reading the super chats. We keep it going. We have another one, Kyle. You're always better with these.
João
names.
Pedro.
There you go.
That's because I watched soccer. That's the only reason I can pronounce any names of
Pedro.
João Pedro. Masterclass from Tyrese. Amazing. Can we finish the regular season with the 8-win streak? Very possible to still finish in 6th. Let's go!
All right, so they have won 3 in a row with 5 more to play. 5 more to play. Yep. And a very good chance.
Orlando's the big one.
That's the question right there. With
and the back-to-back will be tough,
sure,
right? Like
yeah.
Neither opponent is a team that they should lose to in a vacuum.
You're not worried about the Pistons next Tuesday?
Buddy.
On the home floor?
If they lose to the Pistons and our friend who won the giveaway at our live show at Deke's Barbecue.
We gave away some tickets.
We gave away tickets to a L to the Detroit Pistons. I'll have to personally apologize to them.
Hey, Cade's playing better. Playing better.
Oh my God.
He was awful to start the season.
Hey,
so,
they just got 50 points from what's my man's name? Malachi Flynn.
Yeah.
Malachi Flynn.
Okay, sidebar. And
Drop
I know
50.
we have a million things we have to get to still, so we're gonna do like an 8-hour show
Well,
tonight,
we're off tomorrow.
that is true. We're off for Friday, and I'm off Saturday. Lucky me.
Yes, you are.
Is Malachi Flynn now the most random player to score 50 points? It's a 3-way contest
Willie
to me.
Burton.
Dana Barros.
Okay, those
Willie
weren't
Burton.
even the names I was thinking of.
Okay.
I was thinking of Tony Delk
Yeah,
and
that's a good
Corey
one.
Brewer.
That's a
Tony
good
Delk
one.
was a better player.
He's not a scorer. What was Tony
yes, he
Delk?
was.
Hold
No,
on.
he was a scorer.
Tony
He was
Delk
just-
was a scorer. He just
Hold
wasn't a
on.
50-point.
Hold on.
He was
type
never
of
a big
scorer in the
minute
pros.
player.
No.
Yeah.
Kentucky Tony Delk, and of
Tony
course in the
Delk
pro.
scored 9 points a game.
That's because
What
he
are you
sucked at
talking
everything
about?
and couldn't play.
But we never looked at coming out of San Diego State. Malachi Flynn can drop the ability to drop.
He's the best
50 in
pick
the
and roll
game.
guy in the class. I don't know. But he's in the conversation. I
He
don't
is,
know
no doubt.
who's at the top. But
No
he's,
doubt in the conversation.
He's close to the top at the
He's
very
no Dante
least.
DiVincenzo. How about that? No Dante DiVincenzo.
Next one.
Dante launching 12 threes a game.
He got 50, right?
Did
Yeah,
he?
because that was
Did
the
he get 50?
franchise record. He broke the franchise record with those made 3-pointers. All right, let's keep it moving on these super chats. And we keep it going again. Cortland Pazzi. Indiana has a tough few games ahead of them, including OKC, Miami, who they are now fighting for here for that 6-7 spot, and Cleveland. Derek?
Yep. No, look, and I know everyone's
Presumably
rooting.
the OKC game will be tougher than the Sixers one too, because they'll have at
Their
least
players,
one
yeah.
of Shea or Jalen Williams.
I know everyone's rooting for me to eat a shoe. And if they catch both,
I definitely am rooting for you to eat a shit.
well, because I'm really bad at this. At one point, I promised to eat a basketball too last year. I don't learn ever. Anyway, I know everyone's rooting for that, and they would have to pass both Indy and Miami for that to happen. But the real key is, Indy at one point seemed like it might be the more likely one to catch because their schedule is so tough down the stretch. Now that you are within a half game of Miami, it just gives you a little bit of optionality on who might, fall a little bit down the stretch. With the Sixers having such an easy schedule, you have a little bit of conviction, a little bit of confidence that one of those two will screw up down the stretch, and you have a real chance of having a home playing game.
We got one from our guy, Devon, a.k.a. Schoolboy Beats.
What up, Devon?
Who says, weight cut is what JoJo needed for sure. It helps a lot. And I said this to you guys. I know Derek saw it up close and personal. Devon, you weren't there pregame for the other night, were you?
No, I was not there.
Okay, so
Tuesday.
Derek and I both saw
He was sick.
Joe.
He was being a responsible one.
Yes. Yeah. We both saw Joe in person already, and I think he looks very good for a guy who's been off his feet for 2 months. That's another pause, by the way, if we're going to do the pause thing today.
Not today.
Just
roll with it.
Joe looks in shape for sure. Does he have the lungs yet? No. I think he's going to get there as long as the knee keeps responding well after games. Who we got next? Because we got about 800 of these things, apparently.
Presidential Mike.
Wow.
Keep Tobias and is a bad
tunnel vision
away.
I definitely have the best vision of this group, speaking of, because I can read these clearly.
He meant end his
tunnel vision
away, yeah.
Well, holding back. Yeah, well,
We didn't want to bring up
to
he
keep
who
him
shall
out
not
of
be
it.
named. He's like Sixers Voldemort right now. But
Mike, he was dressed nice on the sideline.
and he was clapping like a champ for his boys.
He's a great teammate. And we'll see what he does.
We did have
when
that
and if he
conversation
comes back.
before the game that part of the reason I don't want to pile on Tobias, even though I see what you guys see, is that he is like a genuinely good dude. I know that has not helped them win, and you don't have to care about it. But as someone who deals with him every day, sees him in the locker room with his teammates, and frankly sees him face the music when a lot of guys would tuck tail and run, James Harden, I have respect for him in that fashion. So I'm not going to sit here and, pile on him.
Also, it's a good vibe show.
Yes,
good
exactly.
vibe.
So
Yeah, nice
we
shirt
see
on.
you, Presidential Mike. We hear you and everybody else, but good vibes only. Right
Jada
now.
Jungle in here. All you Johnny come latelys, hit the like and
That's
subscribe.
right.
Yes,
That's
Jada
right.
Jungle, hit the like and
We
subscribe.
had to do 5 shows a week when they were starting Kyle Lowry and campaign. If you weren't there, at least do us a little bit of favor. Hit the like so we can, beat the algorithm. We did a lot of shows about nonsense basketball, man. And look, you don't have to feel sorry for us. We have great jobs. But
Absolutely.
everyone in the chat, feel sorry for them because
Jobs
they were
get better
commiserating
when
together.
the team is good.
Absolutely.
Or they have to be really bad. Like it's either end of the extreme.
Yes.
You can't. The middle ground is the death of all content to me. So
Mark
thank
Jackson
you, Sixers.
in on the super chat. Maxey is at a level that he can win us a playoff series.
And so we've talked about this some lately, right? That part of the excitement for me going into the playoffs, first playoff run where Tyrese is the undisputed perimeter alpha. He's not the top player on the team. That's still Joel. But Tyrese is running the show. There is no Ben. There is no James. This is him. They will live and die on the perimeter by what he can do. It's scary, but it's really exciting because as we saw tonight, he has gotten so good at picking his spots and doing all the things you need to do to win tight defensive playoff games.
Yeah. And look, nobody when they come in the league at 19-20 is ready to carry a team offensively in the playoffs. That's almost never happened. Tim Duncan, sure, maybe some weird shit like that, but very, very, very rarely does that happen. And I feel like that's especially true for a short, shifty guard who needs to find ways to get the angles, to get his shots, to come off screens, to get to spots where he can get away from his defender and just lose him for a minute to get a shot up. He has needed to grow both his skills and his, understanding and processing of the game. He is now at a point where it seems like he is ready to take that step. And for the entirety of Joel Embiid's career, have had major questions over his running mate, whether that's Ben Simmons and his lack of shooting and his unwillingness to get the free throw line, or James Harden and his history of, playoff failures and also his declining physical skill sets. Well, now you have a player who is coming into his physical prime, or still in his physical prime, and is maturing so rapidly and is such a good complement. Yeah, you don't know what Tyrese Maxey is going to give you, and that's a little bit scary because you do want proven playoff performers. But you also don't know what Tyrese Maxey is going to give you in the playoffs, and that's a little bit encouraging too, because he is capable of having nights like this in a big spot. It is the most natural fit Joel has ever had next to him, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out.
That's why we need that deep run to Tyrese. Let's make it happen. Kevin Simon, just send Tobias home till the contract is up.
Good vibes podcast, man.
Good vibes.
Choose chill.
We appreciate the donation, but this is a good vibe show.
And they need him.
I'm out of chill to choose, by the way. So
they need him in the postseason,
no longer
Kev.
choosing chill.
They need him. We
Look,
hear
if
you.
we're going to keep doing hour and 20-minute shows, we're going to have to bring a lot of chill into the studio.
I mean, we got some over here. It's just not cold. That's the extra stuff, right?
It's not like it's not.
We don't want to have the non-Blue Mountain Coors Light over here. That's bad product
It's some
placement.
sort of chill. It's not warm. It's not warm in here, All right, Mr. Rudy Poo. I'm glad Kelly finally got his revenge on Haywood Highsmith for crashing his bike.
I'm not sure if I missed something there, or that's this is either
Because
way
of the Highsmith,
over my head,
because
or
of the Highsmith incident where he was had the incident in Miami.
Oh no!
With the accident.
I'm going to pretend,
Kelly's
Mr. Rudy
accident.
Poo, that you did not just make that
So
joke. And
we thank you for the contribution, Mr. Rudy Poo, as always. Liam Stevens says, how long until we talk about Maxey, the best guard in the East?
Whoa, I didn't remember the Hayward Highsmith thing. It happened pretty recently.
It's bad.
It was bad.
it's
Yeah, it was bad. I would not connect
Remember
those
the
two. I'm not
Dante?
comfortable.
It was like the
connecting those two
Dante
at all.
Stallworth one.
I'm all
Yeah.
for some off-color jokes.
Yeah.
but,
No, I didn't realize
that
how
one's-
bad that was.
It was like the Dante Stallworth thing, but I think his we don't know how that's going to turn out. It's
Right.
not as bad as Henry Ruggs, where we don't know if he's going to have to go and lose his career, but it wasn't a good situation. We keep it running here. Thank you again, Liam Stevens, best guard in the East. Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey,
Trae Young
Trae
when he's
Young.
healthy. But after that,
give him another year and we'll see how the playoff run turns out.
because
as
we
well.
said
He's been in the
previously, we
conversation.
would have said coming into the year, you say, "Oh, Dame, that's an easy one." Tyrese has been better than Dame.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't even think that's really
And I brought this
arguable
up.
to me.
I remember a lot of people in the chat being like, "Oh, well, if they had made that Dame trade, maybe they wouldn't be struggling so much without Embiid." Well, if you look, I brought this up in the last show. If you look at Milwaukee's on-off with Giannis on the bench, they're worse than the Sixers with Embiid on the bench. Tyrese has been and I think we were talking about the other day where his 3-point percentage is down. His 3-point percentage is down because the shots this year are so much tougher. And the way he has succeeded in elevating his, or at least maintaining his efficiency despite having to carry a load without, a scoring load. If someone's going to call it out, I'm going to call it out. A scoring load without Joel Embiid, without having James Harden there to create shots for him. It's been really, really encouraging. It really has.
Really
Speaking
has.
of pause, by the way, it was referenced in the chat that the newest one is No Diddy.
Diddy.
Yeah.
And that was a Philly thing before this recent
Yeah.
See,
thing.
I still keep wanting to go back to Archer.
I'm staying as
what?
far from that as P. Diddy should from all minors and that.
You
Wow.
wanted- what was the one
I
you
keep
said?
wanting to.
What was the one
This
you
show
wanted
is
to say?
unhinged tonight. I keep wanting to go back to Archer and do the phrasing. but
okay.
Are we not doing phrasing anymore?
Okay, I got you. Yeah. The puff stuff is not good. Let's keep it moving. Front running fan base. The front running fans are back.
And we welcome all of them. We take
Good
all
vibes.
people of all types around here, whether you were out, whether you were in, whether you were one of the sickos
Deep
on
playoff
Easter
run.
Sunday watching us in a watch along where Maxey didn't play against the Toronto Raptors,
Yeah.
the stinky Toronto Raptors, or you're just somebody who loves Joel Embiid.
We
we
appreciate
love
it.
you all.
We
Promise.
appreciate it. JP, what up, Dev? We back. Well, we are back. What up, JP? Love it. Love it. See, we have our stuff that we do. You know what? We have our stuff. We love you. We appreciate it. I think we might have to get some T-shirts for that because that's becoming a thing too. Our what up at the end, our shout outs. at the end of the show. Vince, I know you're watching. Sanj says, have you ever seen Embiid take intentionally take a
one-footed running free throw line floater
Sanj,
before
you had
tonight?
to be in here with us because the first one he did, which was like a finger roll, and it was like a Dr. J type of shot in the middle of the paint, and it just teardropped right in. The second one was like, he's got a Tony Parker runner, floater, that he just casually dropped in. And I said to Kyle, he was bored as hell doing his rehab, and he was just trying shit.
He's sitting in a chair with a crutch,
Yes. This is the Brett Brown
I can do
days.
this.
Yes, he's just
He used to do
doing
that with
stuff.
Nerlens all the time.
Yeah, and he was doing. And you know what, Sanj? That's part of the arsenal now. You know, Derek, he's going to bring that back. And the thing that was most important to me, how under control. He wasn't out of control. We've seen him in those spots with those pocket passes, and he's barreling into somebody and getting an offensive foul because of it. But no, he did not do that. He was more in control, and it was crazy. Fusion said the finger roll was actually crazy. Yes, it was. That's why we said it during that time. Thanks for bringing that up, Sanj, because that was nuts, and that's now part of the arsenal. Final one from Ash. They are so dangerous when they run the two-man action in the playoffs. I will run it all day in the clutch and make teams commit 3 guys to slowing it down and stopping it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's been the
I thought
story.
Derek was just going to say, yeah.
That's his let's get
can
the hell
see
out of here.
I can see Derek's body language to a point now because we're with each other enough
We're an
that,
hour and
that I
15.
know.
Buck 11
I
in.
can see sleepy time, NyQuil Derek like peeking through like, these motherfuckers won't let me go.
Blame Ash because
Anybody
he got
else?
that
I
one
don't
in
want to
there
say don't drop a
few
super
minutes
chat.
ago.
No, listen.
No more. There's a cutoff.
We all, including Derek, love the support and all that, but I can definitely tell when Derek the morning person meets Derek the night person.
Oh, man. I wish he had to come in here from Anthony's show tomorrow morning.
I'd probably be fine with that. I'll be up anyway. Anyway, regardless. And that's why you wish they had a few more like real decision makers that you trust, because you want people who can burn that, who can make you pay for that. Whereas a lot of players, they're either indecisive or they're maybe a little too decisive or they don't have the passing or whatnot. But yes, that two-man action is almost impossible to stop with 2 people. That's why Tyrese Maxey turning into a 30-foot three-point shooter is such a big deal. I want to see that in the playoffs. Absolutely.
Yeah, and with Lowry out there too, man, they just more times than not he's going to make the right decision. And you brought it up where no way Nurse is not going to have Lowry out there with Maxey at least on the floor at the same time.
I would hope anyway.
Yeah. And then we saw Campaign was the other one at that point. But folks, this has been a fun show. Great win. 5 games
we gotta
left.
let Derek go home. He looks like he's in jail right now.
on the season, and they have Memphis next on Saturday as part of a back-to-back San Antonio Sunday. Kyle's going to be off on Saturday, so Derek and myself and Brianna will be here for you, and we thank you as always.
I won't give him too much
for hanging
grief,
out.
but we had a late request for Kyle to cover for him on Saturday on a situation that should not have been a late request. And I'm a little worried for your own sake that you have the proper planning.
No.
We should have called Tim into action. Bring Tim in.
I'm not going to bring it up what it is because that's your choice to do so. But yeah, I'm just hoping you had a little more planning ahead of time. Vince, what are you doing? Stop it.
Go Cavs. Go Sixers,
Another
Cavs,
super
Bucks.
chat from our guy Vince. Go Sixers. Cavs or Bucks in the first round. That's the last super chat. If you send another one, I love y'all, but we got to say our goodbyes. I promise you.
So I would rather cover the Bucks, but I think the Cavs, you have a better chance of winning and advancing. So I think it's got to be Cavs.
By the way, Jay
agree.
with a great point. We didn't mention it. We'll talk about it on Saturday. Jeff Doughton gets reportedly Jeff Doughton.
I am not talking about Jeff Doughton.
It's actually official
It's
now.
official?
No, I know that.
Okay.
I'm saying the email came through.
I'm just saying, if we have a 20-minute conversation about
Timmy
Jeff Doughton at
Goodtimes
this time of
Bontemps
night.
reported it earlier. I'm just saying.
Jeff Doughton in the season contract. All right, let's get to the names.
It is going to take me about 25 minutes to get through all these names, so I won't get to all of you. I apologize in advance. We might break the bell if we hit it every single time, but guys, thank you so much. We've had a lively chat tonight.
Oh, man.
We could get some more likes on the video and subscribes. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I love you all for being here. Thank you to Trons, Sir Shmooey, Phi Chi, King Kenzo, Luke, our guy Al, the 2-minute
What
warning.
up, Al?
I will never forget again. Jay the Jungle, who, by the way, said Cameron's more of a feature artist. Go listen to Purple Haze, motherfucker. I swear to you.
Hold on, Aaron.
You will change your tune on that one. Jay the Jungle.
Oh, Jay. Hold on, Jay. Don't do that.
Come home with me
that.
and Purple Haze are unassailable.
Oh, boy.
Come talk to me at another time.
Oh, boy.
Hey, Aaron.
What up, Aaron?
Martian Lynch, 33. Fusion. Vincent, our last final super chatter. Hello, Vince. That motherfucker, Devon Givens. Coach Lowell Ricketts.
Says, eat
Terry
a
on. Nick Nurse's pinky ring, who wanted me to crack a second cold one and keep the party going.
If they get to the Eastern Conference Finals, we have to wear pinky rings at least.
I am not a pinky ring guy. You are the only person at this table.
Ring, but we're going to wear one.
You're the only one at this table who could even
hats.
think about pulling that off.
He has no NN hats this season.
No.
No NN
I think that was related to a charity he was doing.
Tony M.
NN hat.
Marty Bones. Matt Forrester. Jim, is that Proul? Is that French? I don't.
What up, Jim?
What up? Let's just say Jim. Shout out to
Apparently
Jim.
the French aren't big enough into soccer that you would pick up on that.
I know some French. I actually, never mind. Story for another. It's 11, 16, whatever it is. Liam Stevens, the hypothetical man. Keith.
What up, Keith?
My girl, Winona, who unblocked me on Twitter.
Nona.
Thank you.
What up, Nona?
I think I said Luke already, but I'm going to say it again. Smy Guy.
Smy Guy, what up?
Khalil Wilson, the number one statistician of the PHLY Sixers show.
Ash?
Ash Monroe, our guy, for sure.
Cheers, Ash.
For sure in Brett Brown talk. Doug Craig. Let's see, who else? We already said King Kenzo. God, there are a million
There are a
names
bunch
in
of you in there.
Randy, Jeffrey Stewart, Charlie Hendrickson, Shedfa.
What up, Shedfa?
That's a new one.
That is a new one.
Brandon Bell, Mr. Rudy Poo, Valhos, Cannoli. How could I forget Cannoli?
Holy cannoli.
Bootzilla.
Boots, what up?
Who are other super chatters? I'm doing a full roll call today. JP, Puppas. Love Puppas. Cortland, one of my boys in college is named Cortland. He's salt of the earth, so I hope that you are too. Breon Davis. Jay, you a fraud.
What up, you a fraud?
Pedro. Devon, Presidential Mike. Mark Jackson.
Keep yelling, Kyle.
Front running fan base. Sanj. JP. We're getting the hell up out of here before I blow a gasket up here.
Hit the like button, subscribe.
No. I will do it. This is
I'm
my
sorry.
damn
I thought
job.
you were tired.
If you have not already, hit the damn subscribe button. Shout out to 3-time, by the way.
I'm about to pass
hit
out. I'm
the
hungry.
bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And if you hit the thumbs up button, I'll stop screaming at you. I promise. I'll sing you a nice bedtime story.
Go to PHLYlocker.com. Get the He's on Fire Tyrese Maxey shirt.
I'll read you a book like Where the Wild Things Are, or The Giving Tree, or something else in a much calmer, quieter voice. We love you all. These two will be back Saturday night. I will see you Sunday. Until then, take it easy.
Thank you, Bree.
We all silly like the mayor.